Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. Bradley's mother, Narcisse Golan, passed away 3 months ago. He is autistic and needs structured routine and therapies he receives for his autism 6 days a week. However, Italy just entrusted Bradley to Italian social services. If he is ruled to go back, he will have to face the next 3 to 4 years in the Italian foster care system where he cannot speak or understand their language. He will be taken away from the only family he has ever known. Please call Governor Hochul at 518-474-8390. That's Governor Hochul, New York State, 518-474-8390, and please voice your concerns to please keep Bradley here in these United States. Hashtag keep Bradley safe. And I have a return guest on. I have Tim Goldich back on. He was last on season 3, episode 188, and season 4, episode 32. And the last time we were on was February 7th, 2023. We talked about victim interpretation and intergender forgiveness. And I welcome you back, Tim. How are you doing as we talk about the love-respect dynamic?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Really appreciate being invited on, Marianne. Always a pleasure to talk with you.
I'm glad to have you on. We always have interesting conversations.
Yes.
So the love-respect dynamic, I know at least my mother had said, God made guys to fall in love quickly.
Uh-huh.
And that's how the attraction works. I don't know if she was right or not. I don't know. But
Well, yeah, I think there's a lot of evidence out there that men fall in love more quickly than women do. Yeah, I think that's true.
I think I wish they wouldn't do that. I wish they would just wait and just, because everybody out there is moving too fast.
Uh-huh.
And that leads to divorces and, bringing kids into the world sooner than they probably should. Wait a while till you get to know someone.
Yeah, yeah. But most of those who fall in love are young, very young. And, the youth are driven by hormones more than uh, deep thought and contemplation. So it is the way it is. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, it's too bad, what they always say, youth is wasted on the young. It would be it'd be great if you got younger as you got older, and mm, but it doesn't work that way.
No. Well, I waited till I was 28 to get married. So I was taking my time and weeding through the jerks, until
Uh, mhm. Uh,
it still didn't work out for me. I still ended up, divorced. So there's no rhyme or reason to it.
right. Well, okay, so you want to start diving into this love respect dynamic? This
Sure.
it's a theoretical construct of mine. It's a chapter in my upcoming book, Loving Men, which is my previous book. It was Loving Men, Respecting Women, the Future of Gender Politics, and the second book will be Equal Partners: The History of Gender Equality. And so, love and respect. Well, first of all, they're related concepts, aren't they? I mean, they
Mhm.
overlap somewhat. It's not easy to define love without using the word respect. Not easy
Mhm.
to define respect without using the word love. Um, but just the same, they're not synonyms.
Mhm.
They're very different things. And what I've found is that the the way that we can see love and respect as very different things is by examining the very different qualities that beget them.
Mhm.
So with with love, it's qualities like innocence, sweetness, agreeableness, a bubbly sort of emotional reveal, right?
Mhm.
It's nurturance. These are kinds of things that to fall in love with. And then there's the qualities that beget respect are more things like um, competence, intellect, leadership, stoicism, skillfulness, kind of forthrightness, integrity. These are the things that we fall in respect with, as it were.
Mhm.
And the two are very easily confused one for the other.
Mhm.
Um, Generally, when I say that throughout history, men have been more respected but less loved, and women have been more loved but less respected, the men will say, "Well, yeah, I agree with the women being more loved part, but what's this about men being more respected?" They'll sort of balk maybe at that. And meanwhile, the women will say, "Well, yeah, obviously the men have been more respected, but women more loved? I don't get it. What is that?" So, uh, in the um, in the MRA community, the politicized men's movement,
Mhm.
we'll generally say that no, women have been more respected, not less respected, and they'll go on about all the deferences that are paid to women. So let's set that scene. Let's set that up. Let's say it's like 500 years ago, and we have some room, a lot of wood on the walls,
Mhm.
and a big oval table, and men around it, with the leader at one end, and they're busy doing their male thing,
Mhm.
and in walks this woman, and she is resplendent in her gown, right? And she's from the male point of view, she seems to take a kind of ownership of beauty, grace, goodness, home, family, parenting,
Mhm.
basically all things along the love axis. And they're blown away by her. They're blown away. She seems so nuanced where they are so blunt, and she appears to um, be so serene where they are so obsessed with their dominance game.
Mhm.
So what do? Well, they all stand up, they stand up for her, and remove their hat, and they one of them remains standing, as they gives her his chair, and they're kissing her hand, and
Mhm.
all these deferences, right?
Yeah.
And so, from the politicized male perspective, that looks like she's being more respected,
Mhm.
not less respected. But all of these that she's receiving is what I would call adoration, which is an extreme form of love.
Mhm.
It's not less than respect, but it is different.
Mhm.
And how do we know that? Well, because of what happens next. Now all of a sudden, a man comes crashing through the doors, screaming, "There's a crack in the dam!"
Mhm.
See, so now all of a sudden, there's something of great import. There's some potential disaster. There's a need for action,
Mhm.
and instantly, this woman who had moments before stolen all the attention becomes irrelevant. Her superiority and beauty, grace, goodness, home, family, parenting. What does that have to do with anything now? You see,
Mhm.
now what we're looking for is all qualities along the respect axis. We're looking for intellect, competence, prestige, toughness, strength, courage. We're looking for that sort of thing. See?
Mhm.
And so the first order of business is to choose a leader, and then who will be his lieutenants, and then you need your expert, your engineer, your architect, your
Mhm.
mathematician, and so you're looking for intellect, competence, prestige, right? And then you need your toughness, strength, and courage, because some but he has to dive into that cold, deep water and at great personal peril fix that dam. You see,
Mhm.
so so all of these men are more respected. Even the ones that dive into the water, even those that are maybe a bit, disposable in that
Mhm.
sense. They're respected for their toughness, strength, and courage. They're granted those qualities and revered for that. But they're not much loved, are they? Because I mean, their lives are forfeit.
Mhm.
And if it's 500 years ago, the consequences of failure could be horrendous. The
Mhm.
expert could be executed or thrown in prison or something, and the even the leader could be assassinated. So these men are very respected, but they're not much loved.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, she disappears except for the need to take her to the high ground, make sure she's safe. See, so as always, I see everything in gender in terms of mirrors. So the men are more important, but the women are more valuable. This is
Mhm.
how it works in gender. So love and respect. So part of that theory is that throughout history, men have often fallen in love with women that they don't respect, and women have often fallen in love with men that they don't love.
Mhm.
I think that uh, I think that historically, traditionally, women have fallen into a kind of sexualized and romanticized respect with a man. The man they look up to, the man they admire, the man they think is just amazing. They look up to him and they just, they tell all their friends, right? Oh my God, he's so skillful, he's so commanding, he's so authoritative, he has such high status, he's so smart, he's so capable. And but this sort of looking at this veneration, it's really not love, it's respect. Let's look at the limit case. Let's look at the extreme. So over in the extreme, you've got a woman who says she's fallen in love with a Green Beret.
Mhm.
Okay. And he's like a stereotypical Green Beret, right? So he's got lots and lots of respectable qualities, and he's brave, and he's acquired all these skills. He's incredibly disciplined, right? He takes charge. He anticipates what's going to happen next. He leads the way. He's competent. Uh, but if he's a stereotypical Green Beret, he may have little or nothing to fall in love with.
Mhm.
No innocence,
Mhm.
really no sweetness, no real emotional reveal,
Mhm.
or agreeableness, or nurturance. You see, so she says she's fallen in love with him, and she's got all the physiological stuff going on that says she's in love with him. But how could she be in love with him?
Because he's emotionally unavailable.
Yeah, yeah. Which makes
Mhm.
him intriguing. It makes him a mystery.
Mhm.
But does it make him lovable? No, not really. I
Mhm.
don't think. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Meanwhile, men, gazing in the mirror opposite, and there's always a mirror opposite. You got these men that fall in love with a sort of a wiggly giggly blonde persona. Like think about Goldie Hawn from Laughing.
Mhm.
Not Goldie Hawn the actor, but Goldie Hawn the persona.
Mhm.
She was just a wonderful, ditzy blonde.
Mhm.
Just great with in that persona. It was she was so funny and so lovable in that work in that persona. And and there's tons to fall in love with. She's so sweet, she's so cute, she's adorable,
Mhm.
and she's got all. She doesn't hold back anything. She's just like her bubbly reveal is, is wonderful. Her innocence, her sweetness. But what is there to respect in that persona? You see,
Mhm.
where's the forthrightness? Where's the accountability? Where's the you know, where are these respectable qualities? Well, so to be fulfilling, both sexes need to be both loved and respected. Right. Um, you can separate love and respect. You can kind of isolate them. So you can have love devoid of respect, and you can have respect that's sort of devoid of love. But these are not very functional, are they? I mean, they're really not. It's not what anybody would really want.
Mhm.
Um, and in more recent times, some of that polarization has been diminishing. The men are a little freer to be more vulnerable, and women are freer to be more assertive, and so on. Um, so that's good. That's trend. That's the title of my first book, "Loving Men, Respecting Women."
Mhm.
It's all about looking at that shift,
Mhm.
and it's good to see it. And we have a ways to go. We still tend to want to work at kind of accountability without compassion, where men are concerned, which is ruthless. It respects men, but it doesn't love them. And toward women, it's compassion without accountability, which is infantilizing, and it's loving women but not respecting them. So, we still have a ways to go in, I don't know, being more, more fair, more even-handed uh, with the whole gender system.
Mhm. Or it could be the way a person is raised.
Uh-huh.
If they're raised to respect people and have manners, I think this is what's lacking and making things worse. People just
Well,
don't have manners anymore.
yeah, yeah. Parenting. Wow. Well, I think it very arguable that since ancient times, parenting has evolved immensely. There's evidence to suggest that infants were very poorly treated. They used to. There's this thing called, what is it? Swaddling. Am I pronouncing that right?
Mhm.
Um, it's one thing to just sort of wrap an infant in a snug way that kind of feels more secure. But there's reason to believe back in ancient times that just wrapped that thing around was so tight that to shut it up, just to keep
Ooh.
it from screaming, they would just crush the thing. Yeah, there's reason to believe
Mm.
that uh, in the ancient world, humans did very much lack empathy. And this is certainly borne out with, you look at the Roman Empire,
Mhm.
everybody knows about the Colosseum, but few people know that that was just one of hundreds of these so-called circuses all dotted all over the place, where people, mostly men, were tortured to death just for the amusement of the crowds.
Mhm.
Uh, you can kind of imagine such people then going home. How are they going to treat their children if that's, you know, so, and arguably, parenting has maybe shifted into a less, uh, too many kids just sort of stuck in daycare while both parents are working, and
Mhm.
um, I have a deep feeling that the whole world of women has diminished greatly
Mhm.
as a result of feminist shaming of it. that uh, parenting and homemaking are regarded as illegitimate throughout feminism. That feminism tends to tell women that their top priority is in career, and that may well be true for some women, but for many women, it may be very much a falsehood.
Mhm.
Uh, and but if you have a world where you lack fathers, so that part of the parenting is removed from what, like 40% of homes or some crazy thing like that. What it is currently, but that's a big hit to the quality of parenting. And then you got mothers that are trying to do it all alone,
Mm.
and they're stressed out and they snap now and then, and there's neglect. So maybe parenting has taken a hit since,
Mhm.
as compared to, you know 30, 50 years ago or whatever.
Mm. I think it's taking a hit all around because some kids are, taken away from the mother and they're being neglected. And as was in my case, I was proving all this, and yet we still would not be allowed to go back to 50-50. But these kids needed to be safe.
Uh-huh.
And as they turned out with no empathy. And when you're being raised by someone that doesn't really care about you, they just care about you as a paycheck,
Uh-huh.
you know, um,
Yeah, you mean, yeah, like a welfare check
or something
or a child
support.
payment check, I
Yeah.
suppose. Yeah, uh-huh.
And,
Yeah,
there
sure.
are, and you know what? There are some great guys out there that I'm friends with that are good nurturers that really deserve custody of their kids.
Yeah,
I mean, there are truly, and there are women out there that have shown evidence and, and saying this guy's not safe. And yet they take the child away from her and give it to someone completely unsafe, even if they're really not even his kids. I mean, these courts are
yeah,
contributing to all of this big mess that now we have a society of, unempathetic individuals. I'm probably mispronouncing that. I don't even know if that's a word, unempathetic. Apathetic? I
uh,
don't know.
I don't know.
So, but I see that happening.
Well, there's a theory that children get their empathy from, the father, not because he models it more, but because he's more of a mystery, because he tends to be more stoic, and therefore the children have to develop the skill of figuring out what is going on with dad. Is dad angry? Is dad in a good mood? Is dad in a bad mood? They have to sort of learn how to put themselves into another's place and sort of figure another out. And they learn that perhaps from dad.
Mhm.
Lots of theories going around. I mean, but
Yeah.
uh, but that's one of them.
Because, I was, with, a friend, and we were driving in the car, we were just going shopping, and it was pouring down rain, and there was this poor guy was in the median on his bicycle with a bunch of grocery bags hanging off his bicycle,
Ah,
and I said, "Oh my god, that poor guy he's in the rain, he doesn't even have a car.
yeah,
How horrible." I mean,
yeah.
and her son said, "That's his fault." I said, "Why would that be his fault?" "Well, he doesn't have a car, that's his fault." And I said, "Well, maybe he wasn't raised the way you were raised with, you know, being encouraged to get an education or."
Well, you see, that's a perfect example of accountability without compassion. You see that?
Mhm.
He holds him accountable for not I don't know, having the skills or the drive or whatever it is to make enough money to have an automobile, or be able to fix the automobile he's got or whatever it is, without compassion for exactly what you're saying. Maybe he just wasn't raised that way. Maybe who knows what
Yeah.
situation befell him that he doesn't have a car.
I think this is what the world's churning out, is a bunch of people with this mindset. I just, I just don't know. In fact, when I was working in the ER, when I had a career, um, there was a patient in there that he was just screaming his head off. He was just sucking up a trauma room that somebody else needed, just to be transported to another hospital, and he just would not behave. And so, the nurses are like, "Why doesn't he shut the up?"
Yeah,
And I said, I said, "We don't," I said to the nurse, I said, "We don't know how he was raised. We
right,
don't know if his parent was out, either working or even doing drugs. We don't know what he was
right.
taught."
That's right.
So
Or what traumas he's been through.
right,
Yeah.
right.
I do this Path to Spirit weekend. I'm a co-leader on this weekend called Path to Spirit Warrior. And you know, men of all walks of life come to us, and um very often, somebody will come along the trail. There's like this burdens trail that the new brothers walk.
Mhm,
And well, you might see somebody coming down the trail and just, you might go, ew, I don't like him. There's something about him. Yeah,
mhm,
he's arrogant, or yeah, he's phony, or whatever it is. The judgments.
mhm,
And then he goes out on the what we call the carpet, and he does his work. And I facilitate a lot of that. And out comes this horrendous tale. You know, when I was 5 years old, my mother or my father drove me out of the country, kicked me out of the car, and left me there. You know, terrible stories, things that have happened. I hear horrendous things,
mhm,
and the man breaks down and reveals this profound vulnerability. And that same man that I had all these negative judgments about, I fall in love with him now.
mhm.
Because I see his heart, I see his wound, I see uh, the beauty within him. Um, there's the wounded child, and then there's this man who has survived.
Mhm.
And if only we could see that wounded child within all of us, we could fall in love with everybody.
Mhm.
If only we really knew the pain that is driving someone like that.
Right, and when I was working on the psych unit, there was a violent patient, and, I was working back in the area where it was one-on-one, but I had a male bodyguard. Basically, that's what he was. And so they said, this patient literally put a male staff member in the ER, and that guy won't even come back to work here.
Mhm.
And so I said, "Well, geez, I mean," I looked at the patient. He was always disheveled, even, just wearing what he was wearing. And I said, "Well, what happened to him in his past?"
Yeah.
And, he lived, as I read the doctor's notes and the prior history, he actually lived, his mother chained him underneath the, porch. That's where he basically stayed.
Yeah.
And then he had an uncle who was probably equally as, I hate to say crazy, but poked him in the eye with a pencil and he lost an eye.
Right.
And there was probably more to that story that, to him. But, it's, we can't just judge someone off the bat like that.
Right, right. And it doesn't mean condoning his behavior. He
Right.
acted out and violently and hurt someone. You don't condone that behavior, but you can forgive the wounded little boy inside of him
Hmm.
for acting out. So, whew, you know, you you have to hold him accountable for his behavior, but can do so with compassion.
Hmm. Hmm.
Accountability and compassion must go hand in hand.
Hmm.
One without the other is dysfunctional.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if people can do that. Do you think people can do that?
It's hard because accountability and compassion are in conflict. People tend to choose one or the other. But I believe that wisdom is all about balancing and integrating the two ends of fundamental dualities like conservatism, liberalism, or order and chaos. Love and truth is another one.
Mhm,
Accountability and compassion, yeah, they are in conflict. So from the pure accountability perspective, compassion just gets in the way.
mhm,
Pure accountability is uh, you said you'd have the report on my desk at 8 o'clock Monday morning. It's 9 o'clock Monday morning. The desk it's not there. You're fired. Accountability just wants to get the job done. Accountability just wants efficiency. It just wants um, functionality. It's not interested in excuses because if it's pure accountability, there's no compassion. The man says, "Well, my child got hit by a car," and pure accountability says, "I don't care. That doesn't factor into it."
mhm,
And meanwhile, if it's pure compassion and no accountability, then it's why didn't you get this report on my desk at 8 o'clock in the morning, like you said? Well, oh, I was just tired.
mhm,
I was just I wanted to watch the football game instead.
mhm,
Oh, okay, that's all right then. From a pure compassion standpoint, nothing would get done then. There'd be so the thing is about these two ends of a fundamental duality is that they're in conflict. They don't like each other. They don't even want to be in the same room with each other, but they require each other.
mhm,
One is dysfunctional without the other.
mhm,
Um, Order and chaos would be the most obvious example of that. Uh, if everything is ordered, if everything is order, absolute order,
mhm,
well, then there's no inspiration, there's no artistry, there's no rock and roll,
mhm,
there's no rebels, there's no, you know. Um, Meanwhile, if everything is chaos and there's no order, well, it's pretty self-evident how that doesn't work out so good.
mhm,
So again, these two are obviously in conflict. I mean, order destroys chaos, and chaos destroys order.
mhm,
So they each will tend to want to push the other right off the table. They don't want to be. But wisdom is about making them behave, making them play nice. It's about
mhm,
integrating because they need each other. They both have to be there. I think it's the same with liberalism and conservatism.
mhm,
We do need both and find a way to balance and integrate the two, even though
mhm.
they don't like each other and don't want to be in the same room with each other.
It's like you can agree to disagree
Yeah,
and just somewhat balance it out.
yeah,
It's like, why can't people just get along? But again, it goes back to how I really like, how were you raised? Some people are raised with no manners.
yeah,
Going back to that again, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's shocking how many of us grew up without love.
Mhm,
Grew up with mother and father that just did not love their children. They really didn't.
mhm,
Tolerated the child, fed it, but for whatever reason, they maybe neither one of them really wanted to be a parent.
mhm,
Maybe they're both all stuck on what they've sacrificed for this family,
mhm,
and maybe neither one of them really has any tolerance for this screaming infant or this toddler, that's knocking things over. It's um, but then those children grow up to be wounded
mhm.
adults. Yeah. Mm.
I think some of that evolved. This is just my theory, so I don't want anyone to hate me, but this is my theory. I look at some of these 1950s articles, like way back when, and there was an article with, a woman in an apron and,
Yeah.
the
Right.
husband came home and he has he's holding a martini on the
Right.
couch. And
Right.
she goes, um, something about, their dinner burned. And she goes, "But honey, at least I didn't burn the beer." And but I think actually, I joke about that with my husband because I don't cook, but I say, "Hey, at least I didn't burn the beer." But, I think what happened was during the 50s and 60s, and then when feminism was coming in, I think people were like in the 50s and 60s, "Oh, if your friend had a baby, then you felt, 'Oh, I should have one too.'" And you just didn't think about what you wanted or what maybe you didn't want.
Uh-huh.
And you just went along because this is what everybody was doing in the '60s.
I don't know. I mean, many little girls grow up, playing with dolls, playing house,
Mhm,
helping mom change diapers and babysitting, and so on,
mhm,
and always used to want at least a baby that would wet itself,
mhm.
right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So that you change the diapers and so on. There's a lot of instinct going on with all that. And meanwhile, the little boys are playing with, fire trucks and stuff. Um, of what the sexes gravitate to. Um, but we're not all the same.
Mhm,
I think the instincts, one piece that's missing that I never see out there anywhere is, yeah, there's doubtless an instinct, a nurturing instinct within women, but like any other human trait, it's going to be different in different individuals.
mhm,
Uh, you know, uh, some individuals are going to be born with a very systematizing sort of brain that goes into accounting or whatever. It's just that's what they're born with, and somebody else is going. It's going to be tall, and there's going to be blue eyes and brown eyes. There's going to be all these differentiations in every other trait. Why not instinct as well? So while some women may be born with a very powerful instinct to mothering,
mhm,
other women may not.
mhm.
And yeah.
Well, I mean, I had a friend that told me, she said, I never really wanted kids. I just had kids because he wanted the kids."
Uh,
And I kinda knew that I got that impression, um, but she still was a good mother. She
uh-huh.
was an excellent mother, really.
Uh-huh.
But, you know, I think these things should be discussed before you get married.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
'cause
yeah.
when I got married the first time, I did tell that guy, I said, I'm not having kids, just so you know this."
Mhm.
Okay, because then when you work on a psych unit, you don't wanna have kids. You
Oh
just
no.
really Not to be not but you see this stuff,
Yeah,
and you're
yeah,
wondering
yeah,
lineage can contribute to this?
yeah,
Where does schizophrenia come from? You don't know if there could be some rogue gene that
yeah,
comes out of nowhere. Okay,
right.
so for years, it took 4 years of marriage, and then I decided I wanted a baby, you know, but
Well,
that
how old were you? I mean, wasn't that part of the sort of biological clock, as it were? And
I don't know if I really didn't that really didn't phase me. I was 32 when I had my first one.
uh-huh,
So it's like 28 when I got married the first time,
yeah,
because I just wasn't sure.
uh-huh,
And then on top of that, you're working on a psych unit and you see how people treat each other.
yeah,
Do you wanna bring a baby into this world?
right,
Then I started studying Bruce Lee and Lao Tzu, and Lao Tzu really changed my mind.
uh-huh,
He even commanded generals to be good to women because those were your mothers and they carried you for 10 months. That's what he
right,
said.
right,
And so I
right,
thought, oh, he also said, "You have a baby, you bring them here to make the world a better place."
yeah, yeah. He was kind of the Jesus of the East, wasn't he?
Yes,
Yeah,
sorry.
ah, perfectly understandable.
So that changed my mind.
Yeah,
But, I was ready to do that, but some people aren't. Or some people just don't want to do that at all.
yeah,
But it's something to think over long and hard before you do this. And that way that baby is truly wanted.
yeah,
At least that's my theory. You know?
yeah. And of course, there's also the biological
Mhm. Mhm.
that when a parent has a child, the brain pumps out the oxytocin, and it changes the brains apparently of both mother
Mhm.
and father. So nature is, nature's way of trying to assure the survival of the baby.
Mhm. Or of the family name.
Hmm,
Like, someone may have 1 son, yet they want to continue the family name, so whoever they marry has to have a baby, you know? And
right.
they have to make sure it's, a male to carry on. And then if they have, like, 2 girls in a row, it's like, well, when are they gonna have a male child?
Yeah. Well, that was sort of the case, like in ancient Rome, where
Mhm.
the infant mortality rate was so high. Apparently, largely because they were so neglected, the children being left outside, so much infanticide. And
Mhm.
but yeah, so women who were fertile and had sort of blue blood could name their price, because they'd often be the only way for a royal family to survive is to
Mhm.
bring in a woman who's going to have children.
Mhm.
And yeah, you need the male child in order to sustain the name. Although it's interesting, though, in ancient times, my understanding is that the father did not constitute family. My understanding is some like Cleopatra kept marrying like brothers, and so that they could, because the the male could not lay claim to the throne without the female family line legitimizing it.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that's an interesting piece of it. The matrilineal aspect of family. as understood, because the father just wasn't, didn't know about sperm and didn't really know about the
Yeah.
genetics so much. So, at least in some ancient cultures, father was not regarded as family exactly.
Mhm.
Family was passed down from mother to daughter,
Mm.
even though the name was male.
Mm.
And one reason why families may adopt the name of the father husband is to hold that father husband financially accountable. Once the children and the wife have his name, it's easier to hold him accountable for the welfare of that family. You say these are your children, legally binding,
Mm.
because men never know for sure if the child is really theirs or not.
Mhm.
And so historically, it was a way to bind a man to these children and wife legally.
Mhm. Yeah. Huh. I think also that also changed in the Edwardian era as well into the
Mhm.
Victorian, where then, um, well, like on that movie, The Titanic.
Yeah.
Remember the mother said to Kate Winslet, her character, and says, "You gotta marry this guy. You don't want me to be a seamstress my whole life, do you?" You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So, she was being forced to marry that guy that she
Yeah,
really
the
didn't.
jerk, the jerk. Yeah, the
Yeah.
rich
It's
right, and he was horrible.
he was
He
horrible,
was
but
just the worst. He was the worst. He
yeah.
picked up some child off the deck and said, "Oh, this is my child.
Yeah.
The only one, she's got." He's horrible.
But at least he had some fine jewelry on him, okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. The finest suits, and he was wealthy. That's for sure.
So, it seemed like it the wealth depended on hooking up with a wealthy family who had a single son to keep the wealth together.
Yeah. I mean, so many of these things, they've come down through the ages. Another reason you'd want the son to inherit is because that's the his inheritance is what will attract another a woman to him.
Mhm,
It's see, there's a certain gridlock in the gender system. See, if men are valued for their wallets, then that forces what men need to do, and then in the wheel of complicity that goes round and round, then the force of influence upon woman is that if he is the source of income and resources, then she has to marry this wage earner. Uh, so that the both sexes, they get into this gridlock when the male female system is ultra polarized, like in oh god, ancient India was like really extreme that way.
mhm,
Women just could not, they just hardly could make a nickel
mhm,
without a man, and meanwhile the man was so disenfranchised from the family, he really hardly factored in, except that he brought home the money.
mhm,
And that could get pathological when at the extreme. That's what this widow burning was all about.
mm,
In my judgment, this was women saying to other women, you know, you had your wage earner, you can't have another. So you got two choices. You can either wear a potato sack and stay away and have no access to men and never have another man, or
Mhm.
you can jump on your husband's funeral pyre. Those are
Mm.
your two choices. And because there was always plenty of men around, but few wage earners,
Mhm.
and a woman had to have a wage earner.
Mhm.
She had no choice,
Mm.
and that left men with no choice. You see, again, it's this gridlock. So then the
Mhm.
man has to make the money, or he becomes irrelevant, and she has to marry a wage earner, or she uh, lives in poverty, and
Mhm.
so it's too much. That
Mhm.
that level of polarity was just pretty bad
Mhm.
all around. And it was also a desperate society. It was overpopulated,
Mhm.
and the life expectancy was very short.
Mhm.
There wasn't enough to go around. The resources just did not cover such a population. It was desperation. There was scarcity, and that leads to pathological stuff going on. Desperation.
Mhm. Yeah, it's just there's, like, no answer to a happy outcome. Yeah,
Not under those circumstances,
right.
really. No, not for most. There'll be only a few.
Only a few, right.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I mean, when I worked, like, on the floors, if there was someone who was married, like 22, 25 years, it's like, "Wow, how'd you do that?
I
How'd you make
know.
it last? Congratulations."
Right.
And, they were just highly compatible people. I guess they're just highly compatible, like-minded. Uh,
Yeah.
some people just don't argue a lot. And, um
Yeah. Well, yeah, right. They finally reached some kind of a agree to disagree kind of level, and yeah, I don't know. I think they work at it. I think there's I know a guy who's just celebrated his 35th wedding anniversary, and he's done a lot of personal growth work,
Mhm,
and um he's learned how to not withhold love,
mhm,
which is what we all do. We get resentful, we get angry because he left the toilet seat up, or
mhm,
she burnt the pot roast, or whatever it is, and then the resentment leads to a withhold of love, which takes a billion different forms. It might be sort of stonewalling or ignoring the other, or it might be
mhm,
little subtle things like taking the salt from the center of the table and using it, and dropping it right on your side of it,
mhm,
even though that's rude,
mhm,
but you're sort of in a. So I think there's ways that we can grow, and
mhm. Well, do you remember that oh gosh, I can't think of what it was. Um, I don't know if it was a matchmaking type of site. I can't think of the name of it. It was kind of expensive to join. I can't think of the name of it. But he said, you know, when people say opposites attract, no, they don't. He says opposites tend to fight and argue.
yeah, well, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
and you 'cause everyone says, "Oh, well, opposites attract," but you know what? I think like attracts like, and I think you should go with that, and maybe things would last.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what dating services are supposed to do,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they're supposed to match up compatible people that
Mhm.
have similar interests,
Mhm.
right? Um, they'll match introverts together, and they'll match extroverts together, and they'll sort of, it's like that, they'll I think that's what they do. I don't think they match introverts with extroverts, right? I mean,
Right.
they'll tend to find as much commonality as possible,
Mhm.
and put those two together.
I really think that's key to having a relationship at least have a good chance of lasting, in my opinion.
Uh-huh.
Um, because I'm on my 2nd marriage, and that's like, we're going on our 12th wedding anniversary this year. We made it to 12 years. So far, so good. So, you know, we don't argue much. Really, there's nothing to argue about. I mean, if he
Yeah.
wants to watch Star Wars, and luckily I can leave the room and find another TV set or
Yeah.
something else.
Right. Right.
And, but I think that's what is compatibility and love and respect each other.
Yeah. 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 These days, that's really important.
Mhm,
You have to both love and respect each other. Back in the past, men and women got together for practical reasons to survive,
mhm,
and it was efficient. The polarization was efficient. The man will do this, and the woman will do that, and it was a your goal was to survive together at least long enough to have children and see them through to having children of their own.
mhm,
That was the goal. And all this compatibility wasn't necessarily top priority. You were just looking uh, for a man that would fulfill his role and a woman that would fulfill her role.
mhm,
And that's what you primarily needed. You're on the farm,
mhm,
and you need a man who'll be a man and get out there and plow the fields, and you need a woman who'll be a woman and nurture and keep the kids safe.
mhm.
And if you can do that, then you can survive.
Mhm. Yeah,
and
I don't
you
oh,
know
go
have
ahead.
and have children of your own,
Mhm,
that go on to have children of their own, and then the genetic line continues.
mhm. Yeah, I don't know. Everything's changed now. It's a brand new world, and it's just gotten crazier.
Yeah, it would seem. Yeah, there's this incredible anxiety around gender equality. Gender equality. You must have gender equality, and what that tends to look like is what I call unisex equality.
Mhm,
Um, that's men and women being just obviously equal because they're identical. That's what I call 4 = 4 equality. Self-evident. They're the same. So of course they're equal.
mhm,
But men and women are more like E equals MC squared equal,
mhm,
where the what's on either side of the equal sign are two very different entities,
mhm,
but they're equal because they weigh the same. So as I like to say, the two ends of a balance beam need not be identical to weigh the same, and men and women need not be identical to be equal. I think men and women have always been equal,
mhm, mhm,
not the same, but equal, about equal in number, evenly matched, with about equal overall weaponry and efficacy,
mhm,
creating a kind of equal partnership where each sex plies about an equal overall force of influence within the human system, and are therefore about equally responsible for outcomes.
mhm,
And in my judgment, that's the healthy way of looking at it, because this whole contest for which sex is the more powerless victim goes nowhere.
mhm,
That's what I call the contest for the coveted title of MVP,
mhm.
most victimized and powerless. Um, for one thing, that's a consciousness that cannot be resolved logically, rationally. There's no resolution to that, and no possibility of a positive outcome.
Mhm.
So my feeling is that it's impossible to determine that i- if you could hold the entire male experience all through history, all over the world, on one side of the brain, and the entire female experience on the other side of the brain, who could say with certainty which side's lighter, which is heavier, which is um, freer, which is more constrained, which is um, more joyous, more sorrowful,
Mhm.
which one's better, which one's worse. I don't think that's possible to do. And so what I conclude is, in that case, why not be magnanimous about it
Mhm.
and call it even,
Mhm.
right? And then we still look at all the gender issues, the whether it's anorexia or false accusations, or it's battlefields, or it's it's uh, lack of female Nobel prizes or whatever, whatever it is, whatever you're going to look at. I mean, those issues stay the same. The gravity of it stays the same, but attitudes toward them shift. For example, a woman named Naomi Wolf wrote a book called The Beauty Myth. She quotes Gloria Steinem, book I think might have been The Enemy Within. And Gloria Steinem has been to some symposium, and she came away with the idea that 150,000 women die every year of anorexia. Actually, it's 150,000 women suffer from anorexia and die. But, but that got published in her book, and then Naomi Wolf takes that and says, well, that's like a Holocaust. She compares that to the Holocaust, and of women dying not by nature but by man imposing this standard of beauty where women would have to be micro thin, and
Mhm.
um, so her attitude toward anorexia is completely out of proportion. Her um, her confirmation bias is such that she will believe that 150,000 women, and that's like 3 times the total number of traffic accident
Mhm.
fatalities, by the way. It's not a credible figure at all, really. I mean, if you look into it at all, it's not. Christina Hoff Sommers did some calculations to figure that the total was somewhere between 200 and 400 a year, which is very bad, but it's hardly a Holocaust.
Mhm.
So the thing is, um, if you look at anorexia and understand that it's balanced by human growth hormone and steroid abuse,
Mhm.
on the other hand, um, the magnitude of these issues remains the same, but you're not looking at them through a men have the power, women are the victims, man bad, the overempowered oppressor, woman good, the innocent victim lens. You're looking at the human system as an equal partnership in which both sexes uh, are largely responsible for creating their own predicaments and miseries, for one thing,
Mhm.
and um, for another, you have the attitude of taking turns.
Mhm.
So we'll look at anorexia and we'll go in great depth about that, and we'll look at all the factors that may be creating this, and we'll look at the wheel of complicity, whereby man applies a force of influence upon woman and woman applies a force of influence upon man. And like I say, we'll also look at how each sex can often act as their own worst enemy.
Mhm.
We'll synthesize all these things together, and when we're done talking about anorexia, then we'll go and take a look in the mirror opposite. We'll look at steroid abuse,
Mhm.
and we'll see that they parallel each other. That the anorexic woman looks in the mirror and thinks she looks fat even when she's emaciated, and the boy with muscle dysmorphia looks in the mirror and thinks he looks skinny and weak even when he's bulked up, ridiculously.
Mhm.
And they both can do terrible harm to each other. They can both end up dead if they take it far enough.
Mhm.
You know, and yeah, I mean, if you go crazy with the steroids,
Yeah.
cancer
Mhm.
uh, and what they call roid rage, where
Mm. Yeah.
you've got this huge, ridiculously bulked up man, and he's gone crazy, and he's throwing desks all over the place. And when the police arrive, they shoot first and ask questions later, because
Mhm.
it's like the Incredible Hulk is standing there
Yeah.
with his, and
Yeah.
so um, they don't end well either.
Mhm.
But they're see, the mirror opposites. They're the they're the same but different.
Mhm.
And so by corollary, they're different but the same.
Mhm.
Male version of the thing, the female version of the thing. If we started looking at things like that, the attitudes
Yeah.
improve. And you can look at these things in a more constructive way. And you don't just blame the patriarchy. It just doesn't get you anywhere.
Mhm.
Because, because men are more than happy to man up and take full responsibility, but it's nonsense. A man cannot take full responsibility. He only has half the power and force of influence in the human system. A woman has the other half, and she bears the other half of the responsibility. These things are created by woman and man in equal partnership, and they need to be dealt with by women and men in equal partnership. You have to look at
Mhm.
both sides of the equation. You don't get anywhere just holding men solely responsible.
Mhm.
It goes nowhere.
Right.
It just doesn't. You have to look at what woman and man are doing in co-equal, co-partnership, probably on a totally unconscious level.
That's interesting. This whole conversation was interesting.
Thank you. Sure went all over the place, didn't it?
Well, hey, so a lot of good conversations do. But I'd like to have you back on again, and if anyone wants to reach you, how can you be reached?
Okay, well, maybe you could. I don't know. Can you put something on the? I can't really put anything on the screen, can you? But it's tagoldich@hotmail.com. We'll put that in the comments anyway.
Oh, yes.
tagoldich@hotmail.com. And I have a website. Well, not a website. I have lots of websites, but I haven't done anything with them in years. But you can reach me through just timgoldich.com.
Mhm.
Um,
And
and then
you're on
from timgoldich.com, there'll be links to all everything else.
yeah, because 'cause you're on LinkedIn too as well.
Yeah, I have a quite a good, pay good money for a really good LinkedIn portfolio or whatever it is, and then I totally ignored it.
Aw.
Terrible self-promotion, I tell you.
Well, I'm glad we talked, and I'm gonna have you back on again, so, don't jump off, okay?
Okay.
Slam the Gals, a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these family courtrooms. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth. Please join us again here with Tim Goldich in the future for another exciting episode and other exciting guests. Thank you so much, Tim.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
I do too. Thank you.